Aloha, beautiful beings, and welcome to another episode of the Yoni Havana podcast, where we explore consciousness, looking into how things work in the universe so we can enjoy life more and become more whole. If you're looking for support on your journey to wholeness, more gratitude in your life, and more alignment in your divine purpose, please reach out to me via my website, Instagram, or Telegram. I'm now taking on new clients, offering guidance in expanded states journeys, holistic lifestyle practices, and mindset coaching. On to the show. My guest today is Kevin Orris. Kevin is a coach, entrepreneur, performance philosopher, and student of humanities myths. Kevin teaches others how to create more impact and success, ignite polarity in relationships, and claim their kingdom. In this episode, Kevin shares a bunch of knowledge and advice on how to create more love, more unity, and more attraction in a conscious, committed relationship. He also shares all kinds of information, especially for men, on how to become more successful, more loving, more confident. A lot of things that most men don't know, that I did not know about until a few years ago, and I still keep learning. And wait till the end, where Kevin goes into a beautiful freestyle that was transmitted from the divine and was so heart-opening. So if you find value in this conversation, please share with someone you love. So enjoy this mystical and heart-opening conversation with Kevin Orris. Aho. Kevin, thank you for coming on to the show. Welcome.
Grateful to be here, brother. Thanks for inviting me.
It's an honor and a pleasure meeting you. And I actually have heard of you and seen your face and all that over 5 years ago when I was working for Mike Bledsoe. And if I'm not mistaken, you were both living in Encinitas, California at the time. And what you shared was very new to me at the time. It is still, I think, new. I don't know if new, but unknown to a lot of people in terms of relationships and masculinity and love, really feeling more love with oneself in a relationship with God, all of that. And to me, it's huge. I've seen that you work, a good amount with men, and I work with men in a good amount. I have a men community and retreats that I run. We have that similarity. So I figured, you know what, I just got to invite you and have you share this, because coming from me a lot of times is different than bringing somebody like you who's been doing this for so long and have so much passion and expertise in this. So thank you so much for making time.
Yeah, brother, that's amazing. You worked with Mike. Big fan of Mike. I was part of his Strong Coach Summit, last year, and he's out here in Austin now. It's funny how the Encinitas tribe is in Texas now.
That's cool. I remember when Mike called me to tell me about the Strong Coach idea at the time. I actually made the first logo for it. I was doing a good amount of tech work and design work at the time. I was living in San Francisco. And that's awesome. You were a part of that.
It's a bit of a synchronicity. I literally just saw earlier this morning that Mike is ending the Strong Coach, and it's like 5 years old. So it's kind of a little full circle happening right now.
Absolutely. And actually, it ended up that when he was on my podcast, he introduced me to his fiance's work with altered psychedelic practitioners. So I joined the organization. I now am led by her, leading a cohort of a bunch of practitioners in all walks of life, working with psychedelics. And he's actually, as he announced in that post, he has joined the team on that. So it's crazy how things are working in those cycles and circles, as you were saying. It's awesome. There's so much I want to talk to you about, and I know we are shorter on time today. So I'm just going to dive into, some of the things I've seen recently from you and some of the things that matter to me most in my relationship, in my life, and also that I think are most applicable to my audience. So the first one that I've seen from you and your partner is about a silent date. I didn't know about that idea to bring it in here. And yeah, I mean, please tell me and the audience about it, the benefits of it. It sounds super exciting. Please.
Yeah, I mean, I got that idea. And now I hear there's a lot of practitioners that do this, but I got the idea when I was studying with Elliot Holst and his teacher in Osho meditation and active meditations and that kind of lineage. And there was a whole day of silence we did. And it was just extremely powerful. And obviously Vipassana, I've done, and silence has power. But with a lover, with a partner, because you're always talking, texting, when you go into silence, not from a punishment place, people give the silent treatment, which is, low key emotional abuse. That's withdrawing love. And I think a lot of people don't understand how terrible the silent treatment is when it comes from punishment. But when you enter silence from love, and especially, this is, we, in that video, we're talking to couples, especially couples who live together and spend a lot of time together, just taking 24 hours of silence. You can still make sounds. You can still look at each other. If you have to do house logistics, you have kids, like pull out a notepad. It's not a big deal if you write to each other because you're obviously running a household, but it's amazing what that does for polarity. And it's something we've been implementing, our whole relationship over 2 years.
When you speak about polarity, that's something actually that my partner teaches about polarized relationships, but I'd love to hear from you the importance of polarity and what does it mean in a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to move away from this word because I realize how much confusion it causes. I even have a Facebook group called the Polarity Dojo. I've taught programs called Primal Polarity. It makes perfect sense to me because, if you read a bunch of David Deida, John Wineland, you study polarity practice, even in the Taoist kind of sense of yin and yang, it's just essentially attraction. I don't want to get too focused on the word because now look, polarity coaches seemingly are coming out of the woodwork, which I think is good ultimately, but it also comes with a lot of confusion because people get stuck. It's like, is it gender roles? Are you trying to say that women should just cook and clean and men should do that? That's not what it is. Are you trying to say that, you can only be in your masculine energy as a man? Is that a gender role? It's like, no, it's not what it is. They are merely energetics between men and women, between the masculine essence and the feminine essence, which you can argue are, archetypal. They're energies. It's not about, what body you're in, but it does matter because most men are going to have a dominant masculine energy. Most women are going to have a dominant feminine. And when a woman is in her masculine energy, you can feel it. She can feel it. When a man is in his feminine energy, you can feel it. That's not always a bad thing. But what I see, especially in the conscious community, everyone who's drinking green juice, doing yoga and, lighting candles and manifesting, they're finding themselves in relationships where the polarity does not work because it's either inverted or reversed, or both are trying to compete to be in the masculine. And we do live in a masculinized world. Like there is an overabundance of yang energy in business and capitalism in the West. And that's real. And women, the yin essence, have been oppressed and suppressed historically. And that's just a fact of religion and governments. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to swing to go full feminine. And I actually think that's one of the insidious things that's happening in the woke culture and the media right now is it's trying to like declaw the masculine by making men feminine, celebrating women being in their masculine, which is fine in principle. Like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Men being in touch with their feelings, being sensitive, women rising to positions of power, making money. That's awesome. I'm pro that. The problem becomes when you get stuck there and then you have the divorce rate and the rate of infidelity and the rate of domestic abuse and violence continuing to go up. So for me, polarity is a return to a healthy natural magnetism between men and women, which is symmetry, which is symbiotic, which is powerful and is what raises healthy children. And if you want to do a masterclass in polarity, just think about your parents and their marriage and how much affection did they show? How much like real deep lovemaking and truth and honesty did you see in their relationship? Some people were blessed and they got to see a very healthy dynamic. Many of us were not. And that's where the front line is. This is not about like just having better sex and dating people. This is about how do we emotionally become whole as a species, because we still, to this day, we built atomic bombs, we've been to the moon, we have satellites, all this shit. We don't even know how to relate to each other as humans. And so that I see as a major quest of this century.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's huge. As you're speaking, I don't know, something happened also before we got on the mic, but my heart started opening in a different way than it usually does. I think it was something started working. And I think the pendulum has swung a little bit too far in a lot of ways. And I heard from all kinds of people, crushing the patriarchy and just like the misunderstanding, I think, of the roles of the patriarch and the matriarch. And as you're talking about polarity and magnetism, this is, the audience of this show, I think, has a good amount of background on the importance of that. So I think that's the best dance is happening when we have the plus and minus working in coherence, working together, attracting and also getting away from one another. And there's something actually you talked about that I think is something great to talk about is the idea of sleeping sometimes not in the same room in bed for a couple. It's actually, something to be frowned upon. I had somebody in my in my house over a year ago who saw that one of the beds was somebody sleeping there, and when I told him the situation, and it was kind of confused about it. So can you share a little bit about the benefits of sleeping apart sometimes for couples?
Yeah, again, like if you want desire and healthy sexuality and connection, you need to create space in the relationship. Most people are living in codependency or trauma bonds. I see this with clients all the time, and they don't even know it. It's like that just seems normal to them. It feels safe. And I'm not saying you don't need to be close, because you do. Attachment is real, and you should understand your attachment style, and healthy, secure attachment should be the goal. But sleeping apart, even one night a week, extremely healthy. Again, I first heard this from Osho, who, I love his work, very controversial, but he spoke about this a lot. He's like, let there be space in your togetherness. Let there be, you know, there's a line in the Prophet by Khalil Gibran about, in your love and your dance, let there be space so the wind can blow through and carry secrets. And like, there's poetry about this, but practically it's very important. Like, you know, and I also know this from human design. I'm a manifester. And like I've had many people be like, you need to sleep alone to reset your field. And that's true for me. I do need to sleep alone once in a while and wake up in my own energy and have my own routine and do my own thing, go to bed when I want to. It doesn't mean that we're not connected. In fact, what happens usually is when we sleep apart the next day, we're 10 times more attracted to each other. It only increases the polarity and the love there. And I think a lot of people, because of, again, Hollywood and their ideas about what a relationship looks like, oh, if you're sleeping apart, like, the relationship's going downhill, or like, oh, he's sleeping on the couch, like you guys are fucked up. And, I recommend to couples, you should have your own bedrooms, you should have your own offices. You need to have a separate space, especially for men. I think it's slightly more important for men often to have a man cave, a study, a place of rest and masculine solitude and work and vision. Women often need this as well, but it's not as much a non-negotiable, I find, with women. Sleeping apart is such a simple thing. It doesn't mean that you're on the rocks in the relationship. And I would just invite any couple out there. Now, obviously, when you're first dating, maybe it's not time to implement that. But when you're in a committed container, just try it. Run the experiment. What's the worst that can happen? You wake up and you're like, oh, I actually didn't feel good. Like, let's sleep together every night. Cool. These are kind of practices you only want to implement if you feel like you want to increase the health of the relationship or like play with the energy. It's not something I would recommend to every couple.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing. And I find myself a lot of times when I travel for retreats, or sometimes even spend a lot of hours here in my office, that I miss my partner. I miss my kids way more than being around them. I have the gratitude of being around them. I love them so much. And there's sometimes even just like when I'm at the airport, like the feelings of yearning and missing them, and how much I don't know, the love kind of grows in that way when there's distance. So I'm 100% with it. And yeah, it happened that I implemented it without knowing that that's a healthy practice. Every once in a while, I just kind of felt called to do just to sleep in the office where we have an extra bed, and just kind of feel cozy in my own energy. I don't know how my swings go, but I love the idea of consciously making that a practice. I want to talk about date nights. Making time, as you and your partner were talking about, sessions. I don't know what do we call them today. Make love making sessions, sex dates, all of that. I'd love to hear from you some of those recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, this is often the case, especially when I see like married clients. It's like early on, right? You're dating, you're like trying to get, their attention, and you want to impress them, and you're going out on dates and having these amazing experiences, then coming home and being in love. Once you're together and it's been a while, you have to schedule it and take, steps to ensure that. And so, well, we've had our whole relationship are like love appointments or dates, and you can do more traditional dates. Like, we've had a schedule of once a week. We've taken a month off here and there. You can go out, and we switch who's designing the date for the other. So you can go out and do dinner and a movie, or the classic thing. Often it's a deep tantric space of like massage and meditation and lovemaking or whatever. And it's such a simple thing. And it's shocking to me when I talk to people online, or I'm doing polls in my group or talking to a client. They're like, well, we don't have time. Like, when are we supposed to do a date? You know, we have kids or we have our jobs. It's like, that's just straight up bullshit. And I'm going to call that out, because if you have a work meeting or you have anything else, you're going to put it on the calendar. You're going to budget time for it. You're going to make it happen. What it is it's not a priority. And so, I always invite couples, like, make it a priority, show up to it. Even if you show up and you're both tired and you're not really in the mood to make love or be connected, you still show up. Maybe that's a time to just talk and be intimate, or just a time to meditate together or go for a walk. Like, it doesn't need to be, I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on it. It doesn't need to be that. It's just your time as a couple, and you're feeding the love, you're feeding the entity of the couple, and you need to do that.
Thank you. I think, as you said, making the priority and a commitment to do that. What do you recommend to people that have kids and perhaps don't have the budget, or feel like they don't have the budget to bring somebody to watch their kids and whatnot?
Yeah, again, like, if you are in pure scarcity and you're barely, feeding the family and paying bills, I get it. Maybe you don't have the budget for childcare, and then you call a friend or a family member. So even then you can find it. But when couples tell me that they can't afford childcare, again, I'm pretty extreme with this. Show me your bank account and show me your calendar, and I'll tell you what your actual priorities are. Because I guarantee, I go into your bank account, I'm going to see that you spent $75 going out, drinking beers, and eating dinner, or you spent $1,200 on a new iPhone. One night of childcare a month, you can't afford. Now, I get it. If you have kids, it is harder to schedule that alone time. This is where it's important to be in a village. Ideally, you wouldn't even have to hire childcare, because you have other couples and friends who could watch the kids, or family members. That's kind of the village way. And obviously, we don't all have that, which I think is at the core of why, we even need to talk about polarity, is because we've kind of lost the village living, and we've lost some of these natural ways where other couples support each other, and the children have uncles and aunties, and like are held by the village. But yeah, on a pure budget level, what is it, $70, $50, $100 to hire a babysitter or a nanny for the night? You can do it. Maybe you can't do it as often, but you got to ask yourself, what's the value you place on the relationship? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Are you prioritizing it? Is it worth the investment to you? Maybe it's not, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. It's just, have a real conversation. It's never about the money and the cost. It's about what you value.
Thank you. I'm curious, are you living close to family?
I mean, not super close. So I live here in Austin. My family's in Houston, so they're a few hours away.
Do you feel like you're living in some sort of a community where, when you'll have kids, if that's a thought, you'll be able to live that kind of lifestyle, more community?
100%. That's what I desire. It's in the early stages. I just moved here and planted roots. I've been nomadic for many years, traveling the world. So I want that, and I'm taking steps to create that. A men's and women's circle is part of that. I fully foresee, when I'm ready to have kids, my brothers, my dear close friends, other couples that I'm connecting with now, will all be having kids around the same time, and I want to create this dynamic.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. It's a great plan right there. I want to talk to you about retention. What are your ideas, thoughts on semen retention for men? How long? What are the benefits, etc.? I will share, and I only shared it with a few people so far, because there's only a few people in my circles. For whatever reason, after working with a few people over the years and hearing their stories and seeing how some men that I know operate, I made a commitment just over a month ago to do 1 year. That's where I'm at. I have my 2 kids, and we're done with the 2 kids, and that's that. And I feel like I can provide way better experiences for our relationship and grow in my individual life way better with that power. But that's all I share for now, and I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts?
A year is hardcore. I mean, I salute you. That's a big commitment. And I think the longest I've gone intentionally is like 100 days or something like that, which was extremely powerful. I highly recommend semen retention, and even that phrase, like, retaining, really, it's about circulating your sexual energy. So I wouldn't recommend men do it if it's uncomfortable, or like you're getting into like a lot of resistance and it's like really fucking you up. Like, you don't be rigid about it, but it is a powerful practice, especially for men that are using porn, or men that are ejaculating multiple times a day, or every time they self pleasure or with a woman. I think it will change your life and your energy levels. And there's tons of science to back it up. Even after 3 days of stimulation without ejaculation, testosterone is going to go up, your focus is going to go up, you're going to retain dopamine, you're going to be more focused, you're going to put on muscle mass, you're going to be physically more like resilient, you're going to sleep better, you're going to have more motivation and drive. It's very, very powerful for men to practice this. And I always recommend just start with, start small, start with 7 days, move up to 21 days. 21 days is kind of the first milestone where you can really start to feel the power of it. But for a lot of men, it's hard because of the prevalence of, premature ejaculation or even erectile dysfunction, or like they have these habits around how they experience pleasure in their body. And so you need to look at that. And it helps if you have a partner who's on board with you, who can help you like be in your breath, be in your body, and not get out of the performance of sex and trying to act like a porn star, which is a bunch of fake acting anyway. And it's toxic mostly. So it's a big journey. And I recommend it to all men. I think some men struggle with it more than others because for them, releasing their seed is kind of like, it's a balm for them. It's like a medication, or like that's how they've learned to release stress, and that's okay. But that's not the only way to release stress. And I think for me, like what had changed for me when I started many years ago, and it kind of blew my mind, getting into Montauk Chia. Highly recommend The Multi-Orgasmic Man as a starting place. That book is incredibly powerful. Goes into the science of it, the sexology, and like kind of the Taoist Qigong of sexual kung fu and circulation, how to move it with breath, exercises to strengthen your pelvic floor, how to actually understand your anatomy. All this stuff's important. But as soon as you feel the benefit of it, you won't go back. You won't go back to just, spilling your seed carelessly, because it's extremely potent energy. It's pure life force. It's pure creativity. It's going to make you more fit, more like structured. It's going to help you make money. It's going to help your motivation and drive, be creative, and it's going to make you a better lover. You will be so much better with your woman when you have control of that and you choose when to release instead of just getting stuck in your patterns. That to me is the ultimate kind of intimacy builder for men. And women will just become your partner will become insanely more attracted to you, because your testosterone and like your self-control and discipline and your commitment plus your performance in the bedroom are all going to go up.
Let's talk about circulating for a second. So, I talked about a semen retention, and I will say for years, when I felt the energy kind of stuck in that first energy center at the bottom of the body, actually, I felt a ton of stress, and this was my way to de-stress. And I think there's some, I want to call it conditioning, but the information a lot of times that is coming out is for couples to have sex, and this is how people see it as a healthy way, is to ejaculate. Just get you're gonna get this energy, and I do think, yeah, in a certain place that is a healthy habit for somebody who doesn't have any other avenues. So other than blowing up or getting anger, resentment, or other stress coming up, stick with that for the ones who are ready to take the next step. So I'd love to hear about circulating from you. What does it look like? What are the options there? What are some of the things that men can look forward to with moving their creative energy within their body rather than ejaculating it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a movement now, which is kind of funny. I think it's absurd because this is an ancient practice. This is not something that was like they didn't come up with recently. You can go into like yogic texts, ancient Taoist texts, even Mayans talk about it. All over the world, men have understood that there's power in the seed. There's just pure energy. It literally creates life, but also vitally in your body, it has tons of amino acids, core minerals, tons of energy that's physically vital to the body, that the body does reabsorb when you're not releasing it all the time and having to produce more. Now, that all being said, like the place to start is just like, do you understand your arousal pathway? Like a lot of men, as soon as they get aroused or they start having sex or they're self-pleasuring, like they get to the point of no return quickly, because that's just how their body's wired. And that's okay. That's where I started. That's why I even was interested in this. I was like, fuck, I want to be a better lover. I don't understand why I can't hold this energy longer. And I think a lot of men start there. They want to perform better. They want to be better lovers. Of course, that's fine as a place to start. You have to understand that being able to hold pleasure in your body is very powerful and sacred. So if you just get pleasure and it starts being built up and it's just trapped in your lower body. It's just trapped in your cock and balls. And then you just release it as soon as it gets too much and then you feel relief. Well, that's just 5% of the experience. So your breath is going to be the key. So as you breathe deeper, as you open the front of your body, as you soften your jaw, you soften like the grip in your muscles and like relax, that energy, that pleasure can spread throughout your whole body. And that's where, like, you know, at the advanced levels, you can become multi-orgasmic. You can orgasm as a man without ejaculation. And that's real. And a lot of men have discovered that by practicing this. Now, that's not an easy place to get. Like, you probably should just start by edging. Like, if you know when you get to 90%, you're going to bust no matter what. You need to play with 60, 70% and then stop, come back to the breath, focus on her. You know, like the easiest way to start is just that, like edging, learning how to stop, play with your edge and not like go over the cliff as soon as you feel like you can't hold it. Practice holding that energy. It's extremely powerful because there's tons of places in life as men where tension or, you know, energy will come up and it's like, we can't hold it. It's too much. But if you actually relax in those moments and you breathe and you sit up straight, stand up straight and like sit in that experience, there's extreme value in that. There's extreme resilience that's created. So for me, like if you can't control your sexual energy, how are you going to control financial energy? How are you going to control leadership energy? How are you going to control, you know, tough experiences in your work, in your career, in your life, experiences with your brothers, experiences of physical trial or emotional trial? And there's a big emotional component too. So if you can't move, like, you know, I always teach that like you need to be moving your emotions, your rage, your grief, you know, the frustration in other healthy ways. You can't just rely on spilling your seed as a emotional release where you're just like, oh, I can relax now. And I know a lot of men, like that's actually where they struggle the most.
Thank you for sharing that. A few things I want to follow on, and first one is the multiple orgasms, right? So different ways to orgasm in the body, which most likely will be foreign to most people listening to this. So what is that? What are the possibilities and benefits?
Yeah, I mean, women are naturally multi-orgasmic, right? So women, you know, the more pleasure they're receiving and the more energy in their body, you know, they're just naturally gonna continue. And actually more is better for women. The more they orgasm, the healthier and more their hormones and endocrine system and pleasure centers can, you know, obviously there's limits, but you know, that's the power of the feminine. As men, you know, it's not as easy and automatic because you have to play with the energy. So that means moving it just out of your groin into your whole body, moving it to your limbs, your body, your head, your feet, like circulating. And that's where the breath comes in. And what you find is, and everyone has to find their own way to this because of course, like ejaculation is like this explosion of like dopamine and oxytocin and endorphins. It's like this hit and it's extremely powerful. But the longer you build it up, when you do choose to release, it can be like a transcendent experience. When you stay with it and you don't bust and you sensitize your body and you keep your body open and you keep your breath moving. And, you know, in the Taoist kind of idea, and again, Multi-Orgasmic Man is kind of the book I would recommend to start this path. They talk about the microcosmic orbit, which is basically moving this energy up and down the spine, moving this energy, you know, from your sex center up through the heart, through the brain, through your whole body. And as you do that, you'll build a charge. You know, we're electromagnetic beings. You'll build this charge up. And as that charge builds, you know, you will start to experience orgasmic energy that's not, you know, just like the release. And so there's many kind of like subtle ways it can happen. It can be very subtle for some men. Some men naturally can immediately have like a big orgasmic feeling without releasing their seed. So it's a very kind of mysterious thing. It's going to be unique to each man. But, you know, having experienced it myself, I can say that like it's extremely powerful and pleasurable because the idea and the Taoist idea is that you don't lose Jing. So Jing is like the very like core energy that's in your seed that when you release, you know, you have to replenish that Jing. When you're multi-orgasmic, that Jing is being recycled and nourishes your whole body. You know, there's all these health markers like white blood cell count and bone density. You know, science has barely touched this because the mainstream idea is that, you know, ejaculation's healthy. You can do it as much as you want, which, okay. That's great if it's working for you. But as you age as a man, the more your jing is precious. So if you're in your 20s, yeah, you can get away with, releasing quite often and you'll still feel great. But as you age, and this is kind of the idea of the Taoist immortals, or these men that when they cultivate this for long periods of time, their vitality and their energy increases and they're still having just as much pleasure with their partner.
It's awesome. Thank you. I do want to touch that. The way I discovered this was actually through Mike Bledsoe, David Data, The Way of the Superior Man, still the number one book I recommend to all men, masculine men that are looking to become better men, period, in all areas of life. And it ends towards it. I mean, that's the spoiler alert. It's about getting the energy up to the pineal gland and having what's called a braingasm. Now, in a more contemporary scientific way, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who has been becoming more and more popular, I've taken some of his teachings, retreats, etc., and a good amount of people that I know have done the work. And the amount of healing, as you talked about, the healing that is happening. So a lot of what Dr. Joe teaches, again, spoiler alert, it's about bringing that energy, the creative energy, all the way up to the pineal gland. Once that happens, there are little crystals that get emitted or released in that way, and there's an endogenous DMT experience that turns on the antenna for the conscious beings that are manifesting. That's the best way to manifest, perhaps, to turn on the antenna, and there's a cycling happening with brain and heart coherence, creating a bigger field, torus field, energetic field, attracting life to us in that manifestation way. So signal getting sent, and then the field is bigger to attract it to us. And then there are by now thousands of miracle healing. I mean, miracles are just things that we haven't perhaps explained, or as you said, like the science and has not been explained yet of how it's happening. For now, it's going to be called the miracle people that heal from blindness, the first time they can walk, just the cancers, terminal cancers, all of the diseases known to humans pretty much have gone away for some individuals who have done their work, committed to that works. For some people it's easier, for some people it takes years to get beyond their conditioning and programming and wiring, but the information is there. And I think from what I've seen David Data, that was the first seed, and then I've seen Dr. Joe's explanation on it in a shorter series called Rewired on Gaia. I was like, okay, so this is what needs to be done. This is, to me, the most impactful work until now that needs to be done. For a lot of, this is why I do my retreats. For a lot of people, getting to that state and not knowing what the target looks like is way beyond, and the motivation to get there perhaps will dissipate and then will go away. This is why I host these retreats of getting people through the door, looking at the door, having a DMT experience first to be like, okay, this is the target. I can do that. There's way more to life. Perhaps for some people who haven't had any experience with that, more than the third dimensional experience. These are the possibilities, endless possibilities. This is what it feels like. This is connection to the divine, God, however one wants to call it. And then getting into the daily practice without perhaps plant teachers and such to do this for some people on a daily basis, for some people on a weekly basis. I'm curious, what's for now in your own life? How often do you release your seed?
Yeah, I mean, for me it varies. Usually, like it's probably weekly because my partner and I, like, we both practice this. She's amazing with like building that energy with me. So with her, it can be, usually if I release like once a week, I feel like I lose no energy. It's almost like I gain energy and motivation. Now, if I'm really holding the line for something, or I'm launching something in my business, or like I'm really creating, I might go longer, like 2 weeks. And that to me feels healthy and amazing at my age and, in our kind of rhythm. Now, before I met her, that's when I went 100 days. And that was kind of one of the most transformative periods. And there will be times where I will commit to longer stretches to really harness and build up energy. And, there's a formula, actually. It's a Taoist formula of like your age and how often, based on the season. For example, in spring and summer, there's more Jing available. So you can release more often. In winter, it's recommended you retain more. There's a whole like kind of philosophy around it, which I find very powerful. But yeah, I think most men, if you can go 7 days and still, have sex or still self pleasure, that's extremely powerful. And like, that's a very workable rhythm I've found.
I would say from my experience that I feel, I think, way better about myself. And I feel way better about myself as a man, as a husband, as a father, when I have sex without releasing. I just feel way more powerful. There's something that makes me feel, that gives me the motivation and the confidence that there's nothing in my way that I can accomplish. And I think my woman can sense that. And also, and this time my partner teaches it. It's talk about like an ATM analogy of like the woman can get hundreds, but the man can never get to 100. You can get a lot of 80s, 60s, 50s out of the ATM machine, but once he gets to 100, game over. So if I can get a lot of pleasure in my body, and I've been working on circulating this energy, and this is why I committed to a year. I'm working on bringing a reality to me way faster than it's a big reality that would possibly take way longer. So I'm putting way more energy behind it. And actually, on top of that, I'm sun gazing, and I'm using Lila Quantum technologies and such. I do a lot of other things to bring more energy behind my intentions. So it's not the only thing that I'm doing, but I have a big project. It's like a year project for me to do that, and it's something that is super important to me and my family. And this is one of my commitments to me, and as a patriarch of this family. So this is why I chose to do it for now. This was in July. It came to me. I couldn't fall asleep. I'm like, this is what needs to be done. Yeah, I'm curious, and there's Kimanami for people that want to go and learn more about that. I think she's a great resource. And I'm interested to hear from you. Do you have like a minimum, let's say, of lovemaking with your woman, in terms of like minimum 3 orgasms for her? Like, because there's the teaching from Kimanami and other teachers that say like when a woman is having her first orgasm, usually if it's, especially if it comes after like a few minutes, this is just the beginning for the woman in terms of healing, in terms of releasing, in terms of hormones, in terms of so many other things. Do you have any like set things like you will only go after she gets 3 4 or something like that? If it's too personal to answer, please, I mean, we'll move
No,
on.
happy to. I mean, I think Kim's work is amazing. Women have gotten a lot out of that. I recommend her to female clients a lot. For us, it's quite organic. We don't have any number rules like that. For me, it's very dependent. There's times where we're not open and we want to connect and be intimate, but there's not like, it's not going to be a huge like orgasmic session. It can be just very much about breath, very yin, very relaxed, where there might not even be a lot of like physical activity. It's just like breathing together and being together in the lovemaking. Other times, yeah, like I think I would agree with that. Like, especially if you're talking about like clitoral versus G spot versus cervical and like how deep it's going, the woman's body does take longer to open. So the most powerful, like, holy shit moments are going to happen after the third. I would agree with that.
It's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and I will say I've learned all of this from my partner who's been on the podcast, Michael Tierno, and he has got like 14, 15 years on me, and so he had much to teach me, and many resources. So that's not something that I came up with in my own research. I'm curious, how did you end up in the path that you're in? What was the motivator, the starting point?
Yeah, it's very spirit led. I didn't set out to do this per se. I started a university in law. I wanted to do, be an attorney. And then I was like, this is not me at all. So I switched to psychology and wanted to do my PhD in psychology. And I was really deep in social and evolutionary psych, had like kind of the red pill awakening experience, had a partner that cheated on me, was just like totally depressed, lost my friend group. And then I left my home in Texas, moved to California. And, at that point, finding Qigong, finding this work, Tantra, finding yoga, finding martial arts and plant medicine was kind of the cocktail that I was like, okay, all of this that I've set up for myself is just bullshit. And I was on like kind of a railroad track of what I should be, and I thought, okay, well, I'm my voice and my writing and my intellect is my only value. So therefore I have to do academia and become a professor or a researcher. And then I, started hanging around entrepreneurs, read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, met travelers. And that's when I, kind of sold everything and started backpacking through the world in Asia. Went to India, studied yoga, backpacked through Nepal, lived in Thailand, went to Malaysia, went to Laos, was very, open to life. And I started a blog. at that time. Later, I got my yoga teacher training, started teaching private clients, doing personal training. That led to coaching. That led to men's work because I found male mentors. And, the relationship polarity stuff, when I found Data, went deep into his work. When I found, a lot of the attachment styles, psychology, sexual kung fu and tantra. And, also, as I mentioned, I trained with Elliot Holst and his mentor, and the Osho meditations, and that lineage just completely blew me open. And, that led to workshops, retreats. And, really within the last 2 years, I've niched down into relationship work and coaching. And that's what my audience that I've built organically on social media is into. And so for me, it is about product market fit. It's about what I know best and kind of have the chops for at this point. But, I also love public speaking. I love facilitation, doing events here in Austin. I'm actually running a speed dating workshop this weekend here in Austin. So for me, it's like, it was one of my core wounds of like being awkward around women, feeling like a terrible lover, coming out of the shame of being raised Catholic and suppressing myself, and all that stuff led into like, what you most struggle with and want to learn is what you end up becoming the best teacher at. So that's kind of how I've found myself in this position.
What does your family think about what you do for work?
Yeah, there was a time where they were very triggered by it and probably thought I was crazy. And, certainly when I was like, hey, I'm quitting my job at the university, I'm not doing my PhD, I'm literally buying a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia, they were upset. But they've come around a lot. Like, I wrote a book with my co-authors, Sex, Masculinity, and God. And, my mom bought the book for her and her friends. And like, my dad's my biggest supporter now. So,
Wow.
They've definitely come around and see that, me doing what I love and following this path is extremely powerful. And there's still, hiccups because I came from a quite conservative family, and, talking openly about sexuality or these things can still probably bring up a lot for them.
What a blessing. What a huge blessing to be in this situation. Hearing about your parents. I think that's, wow, that says a lot about them and you coming together in that way. Everybody making their strides. That's huge. Is your family academia focused or was?
No, most of my family and relatives are in financial services. So they're like CPAs, accountants, credit analysts. My grandfather was very much, although he didn't go into academia, he was very much the intellect. And yeah, that's just that was my path at the beginning.
I know you got a hard stop soon. I want to ask you one more question. What's your relationship to God, consciousness, faith, knowing that you went through this path and,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe in God. I believe in the ultimate oneness that is love and consciousness that's driving human evolution and is our true nature. And, what's happening on this planet right now is we're going through a massive growing pain of evolution, and God and consciousness are the same thing in my book. Like, do I believe in a bearded man in the sky that's going to punish everyone? And like, the gods of religion are archetypes. The reality, which you can only experience for yourself, I can't tell you what it is that life, everything is alive. And this is what quantum mechanics tells us, and like particle physics and all these things. Like, everything is alive. Everything is God. It's like there is nothing but God is how I look at it. That's what consciousness is. And your personal relationship to that and your ability to bring forth what is your uniqueness, your gift to the world, is very personal. And so I would never tell anyone how to relate to God or consciousness. It's a complete personal path. But the idea that, we're just meat sacks and humans are an accident and we're alone in the universe, and the materialism and scientism view is extremely absurd. And I think that's going to be the thing that, even as the US government, last week admits that, yep, we have UFO craft and there's non-human pilots, it's fully admitted now. Like, as humanity kind of wakes up to its power and what the universe actually is, we're going to see a massive change in consciousness. And I think the religions, especially the ones that are based on control or based on secrecy or deception, are just they're not going to be able to survive what's coming for humanity in the golden age.
Thank you for sharing that. And while we have one more minute, there's one thought that I had. You are a freestyle MC, and I've seen you freestyle a bunch of times. It's super dope. it's so cool to see you express yourself in that way. If it's possible, if you can throw out a little freestyle for us for the next minute or so or less, just to kind of close this out with a
Happy
little.
to. Happy to. Let me
Yeah,
throw on a beat. I can go a cappella, but it's much more fun
you're
with the
so
beat.
awesome, man. Thank you. Wow, that's exciting.
I mean, we actually did this. So we were at a birthday party and like an event put on by my men's group last weekend, and we had a whole cipher. It was amazing. So
Wow, you're
let me,
gifted.
hopefully you can hear this, but maybe not.
I can hear it.
Yeah. See if we can get the gain up here. Yeah. Every single day I'm feeling conscious bliss. That's why Yoni's over here asking me about consciousness. We're gonna bless it up. God, God is two. It's the two and the one, divine unity in you. Your heart to your mind, the longest road you take. Every single day you don't have to bake in the sun. Get the shade of your mind off the top. Feel your heart and feet coming together. That's the stop, the hard stop that we feeling, the beats that we reeling. Every single day you gotta move through those feelings, big emotions, moving like the ocean. Yin and yang essence, that's inside devotion. When you wanna bless up your partner, man, you better hold your seat. I guarantee that you'll win. Ladies out there, you gotta learn to express feelings. Come back off reeling and stop bullshitting your meaning. It's not meaning or demeaning to be a feminine being. When you see yourself all seeing, you're the oracle. Yes, the goddess could be the hottest. Show up like a queen. Quit acting like a doll, kid. Fuck Barbie and all that bullshit. Fuck all the conditioning and all that fucking unreal shit. Be like my boy Oppenheimer. Even though he created the bomb, he was thinking about the Vedas and coming in with the power of the gods. Yes, Shiva and Shakti, we feel it all a dot. And that's the feeling that we on. If you listen to this podcast, I guarantee you're gone beyond the most high. And that's inside your eye because you can see it with yourself when you put attention on attention. That's medication and meditation, no tension. Bless it up. Thanks for listening. Grateful for my brother. And we still blistering with the heat. Out in Texas, I'm on the street. I'm gonna close this up now as I walk with my feet.
Woo!
Let's
Damn.
go.
You crushed it, man. Wow, you're so gifted. Wow. Thank you for sharing your time.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you for sharing your love and divine energy. Wow. Wow. Blessed. Thank you so much. Wow. What an honor. What a blessing. What a gift. I'm ecstatic. I didn't have to have my feminine woman next to me right now to have a session to have a heartgasm. I'm open up and I'm feeling woof, and it's up to my brain. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Kevin. I'm excited to share this. Huge aho. See you on the next
brother.
one.
Grateful for you.
Well, lovely beings, I hope you enjoyed and were inspired by this conversation as much as I was. You can find the full show notes and all episodes on my website at yonihavana.com/podcast. If you are a man and you are called to do transformational work to become a better man, to find and grow the divinity within you, and you are longing a community of masculine men who share a passion for growth, please check out Men of Integrity by going to moi.community. Lastly, if you are enjoying the Yoni Havana podcast, I'd be so grateful if you take a moment to leave us a rating and a review on your podcast app of choice. The Yoni Havana podcast is a brand new show, and your support would help reach new people by rating higher on the algorithms. Also, your feedback would help me deliver the best experience to you as the show keeps evolving. Much love and a big aho. See you on the next one.